Hopefully I'm live. Okay, yeah, I think I should be. um, Hopefully, yes. Oh my gosh, hold on, guys. 1 second. Always with these technical errors, I'm telling you. Okay, I think I have. It's weird. Okay. Either way, I think everything's fine. Okay. Okay, so anyway, hey everyone. Whoop. Hold on. Come on now. Don't fail on me yet. I don't know why. It's like the bit rate over here, it's like dropping and then it's not. I don't know what's going on. Anyway. Oh well. I'll leave like that. If it does happen, I'll have to. No, it keeps telling me this. Oh boy. Was actually a bit better than last time. Okay. Hold on, guys. I'll be right back. Let me try and lower the bit rate a little bit more. Hopefully, I'll fix it. Okay. So I took care of that. Hopefully, that did help. That should actually help a lot. Hopefully, if not, then let me know on that, guys. Yeah, I'm not getting any more errors at least. Which is so funny though. Like YouTube, at least like on the YouTube side, it shows it's fine, but then on the Streamlabs, it tells you something different. So I mean, so many components. But what can you do? Anyway, besides that, hey everyone, nintendonurse back once again. Hopefully your day has been well. I'm actually glad I was able to make it. It's because I was actually out to lunch. And I was like, okay, hopefully I can make it back in time before the stream. If not, I'm gonna need to delay it again. And I did not want to, hopefully that not to happen, but thankfully I was able to make it. But anyway, so yeah, so hopefully everyone's day's been good. Mine's been pretty well, a little bit slow, I'll admit. Again, I kind of did like a little bit of some phone calls and emails this morning, but besides that, not much. Because I mean, I'm pretty much done with schoolwork until tomorrow, and then Friday, of course, with my exams. But besides that, it's been pretty short, pretty easy. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, hopefully all days been well. And today, well, before I kind of start, a quick couple of announcements. Sorry about yesterday's stream. I do know it was like a little bit on the short side, and that's because there really wasn't too much for me to focus on in terms of like the racing, if that makes sense. And I mean, yeah, I did kind of get the main point across, where I kind of showed off every like new detail at least. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to at least get, I mean, there really wasn't much to show. I could have probably done like some online races, but then that's not, the main point that I kind of want to get across. So that's why I kind of decided, let me just end it for today. I'll make it up probably. So I may go live later on today with the game, hopefully. But it just depends. I think I can. I don't have anything else to do today, so we'll see. But anyway, so yeah, so that's about from yesterday's stream, and then going one more time to last week with the suicide discussion. Thank you all so much for the support on that stream. It actually got quite a bit of likes, and I did see like a lot of people were viewing it. So thank you so much. Again, it wasn't easy for me to talk about it, but I'm really glad I was able to at least do it, and hopefully it does help at least one individual, and that's my main goal at most. To at least help someone out that wants more information about it, and that's kind of why I do these series in the first place, to at least help others, and that's my main goal, to always help and do the best I can, even though it's not, obviously, perfect or professional, but I do the best I can to explain everything and to try to get, the points across that I tried to make. But yeah, thank you all so much for the support. I do appreciate it, and hopefully, this series, will, get, will be at least looked upon, in the future, and hopefully others will find at least some stuff helpful, and that's what I do hope for it to be. But anyway, so yeah, so today, this week is the first week of the final unit of abnormal psychology, which it's amazing. It's been like, time flies so by, doesn't it? um, first we did, obviously I did the introduction, then we went over anxiety, then stress disorders, then depression, then suicide, and it's been real interesting. I'll admit that. I want to take this class for a reason, and I'm actually glad I did, because I really am learning a lot about the different kinds of abnormal conditions within psychology, and yeah, it's real interesting. I if you do want to ever take a class, I do recommend that one. It's a little bit detailed, like even more detailed than what I try to explain to you all, but of course, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, I do recommend it. But it's awesome. I would imagine. I think. But yeah, hopefully y'all have been enjoying this series. Once this semester is over, I'm not sure what I'll move on next. I'll probably want to try and maybe I'll do something else. I'm not too sure what I can do. But we'll see. We'll see until that time. Don't want to get a little bit too ahead of myself. But anyway, so this week we're starting with a kind of a little bit more of a interesting topic. It's obviously not as difficult as suicide, but it really does talk about something that in today's world it really is growing in numbers, and you'll see, and I'll talk about the numbers right now as we go along. And just keep that in mind when I talk about like the statistics of every little component. Regarding this chapter, this discussion. Because obviously today we're going to talk about substance abuse. Well, substance use and addictions. So obviously, we're going to go over not all of the ones, because if we did, it would probably take hours for me to do that. But we're going to talk about like some of the most common ones, and obviously some of you may be surprised that it can be addictive as well. So of course, y'all know the basics like alcohol, what is it, like heroin, opioids, all that stuff. But of course, there's some other uncommon ones that I will also go over as well. But yeah, so this is what gonna be this week's discussion is, and yeah, it's gonna be again not really much. There'll be a lot to talk about in this chapter. So yeah, we'll get started with this. Just want to hopefully let me make sure that my thing is still running. I don't want that time to expire on my ebook over here. And yeah, some of these statistics may be a little bit out of date than what my actual textbook has, because again, like I mentioned in I believe last week's stream, some of this textbook that we use online, it's a little bit outdated in terms of like statistics and some of the, not the information per se, but a little bit like what's more common in actual today's standards. But the book that I have, it's the newest edition, and that has the more recent, like at least within the past 3 to 4 years at most, data. Whereas this book, it's about like 5 to 7 years. So you can always, it's a little bit outdated, but overall the information still does apply in general. So that's kind of why I kind of use this to at least more of a guideline to help to at least help me out and talk about this stuff. But anyway, so yeah, so today we're gonna talk about this, and yeah, let's get started. So again, this discussion is gonna be about substance use and addictions, where it goes into different types of it's not all drugs obviously, but it really is more of the harmful things, alcohol, tobacco, and they go into like different types of like categories, like there's even sedatives, amphetamines, all that stuff. So, and yeah, they go into more, different categories as you go by it. But of course, we'll kind of go along as we go on. Though. So, always like what I like to do when I open up the chapters, read the opening case study for this um, chapter. So, we're gonna get started with that to kind of give you all an idea of what people go through, through these abnormalities. So hopefully this really does build up, at least some type of viewing of what a person goes through when they talk about this stuff. Anyway, let's get started. So, open quote: I am Duncan. I am an alcoholic. The audience settled deeper into their chairs at these familiar words. Another chronicle of death and rebirth would shortly begin at Alcoholics Anonymous. I must have been just past my 15th birthday when I had that first drink that everybody talks about. And like so many of them, it was a miracle. With a little beer in my gut, the world was transformed. I wasn't a weakling anymore. I could lick almost anybody on the block. And girls? Well, you can imagine how a couple of beers made me feel like I could have any girl I wanted. Although it's obvious to me now that my drinking even then in high school and after I got to college was a problem, I didn't think so at the time. After all, everybody was drinking and getting drunk and acting stupid, and I didn't really think I was different. I guess the fact that I didn't really had any blackouts and that I could go for days without having to drink reassured me that things hadn't gotten out of control. And that's the way it went, until I found myself drinking even more and more often, and suffering more for my drinking along with my third year of college. My roommate, a friend from high school, started bugging me about my drinking. It wasn't even that I had to sleep it off the whole next day in his class. It was that he had begun to hear about other friends talking about me, about the fool I made of myself at parties. He saw how shaky I was in the morning after, and he saw how different I was when I'd been drinking a lot. Um, Almost out of my head was the way he put it. And he could count the bottles that I leave around the room, and he knew that drinking and kerosene was doing to my grades. Partly because I really cared about my roommate and didn't want to lose him as a friend. I did cut down on my drinking by half or more. I only drank on weekends and then only at night. And that got me through the rest of college and actually through law school as well. Shortly after getting my law degree, I married my first wife, and from the first time since I started, my drinking was no problem at all. I would go for weeks at a time without touching a drop. My marriage started to go bad after our second son. Our third child was born. I was very much career and success oriented, and I had little time to spend at home with my family. My traveling had increased a lot. There were stimulating people on those trips, and let's face it, there was some pretty exciting women available, too. So home got to be little else but a nagging, boring wife and children I wasn't very interested in. My drinking had gotten bad again, too, with being on the road so much, having to do a lot of entertaining at lunch when I wasn't away, and trying to soften the hassles at home. I guess I was putting down close to a gallon of very good scotch a week with one thing or another. And as that went on, the drinking began to affect both my marriage and my career. With enough booze in me and under the pressures of guilt over my failure to carry out my responsibilities to my wife and children, I sometimes got kind of rough physically with them. I would break furniture, throw things around, and then rush off and drive off in the car. I had a couple of wrecks, but lost my license for 2 years because of one of them. Worst of all was when I tried to stop. By then, I was totally hooked, so every time I tried to stop drinking, I experienced withdrawal in all its honors. With the vomiting and the shakes and being unable to sit still or lie down, and that would go on for days at a time. Then, about 4 years ago, when with my life in ruins, my wife giving up on me, and the kids with her, out of a job and weighed down on my luck, Alcoholics Anonymous and I found each other. I've been dry now for a little over 2 years, and with my luck and support, I may stay sober. Unquote. So as you can see, yeah, this person is definitely, well, definitely were going through, was an alcoholic, and yeah, definitely, they definitely, you can see that they had to go through several phases where either they got a little bit better, but then they got worse again, and of course, you can see their life being deteriorated through, just alcohol itself, and it really does. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, that's fine. And you really can't tell that. Yeah, it really does affect your life, even if no, even if he really didn't think of it at the time. Eventually, it did. Um, so yeah, that definitely is like an example of just one of the many people that go through substance use disorder, and yeah, it really does affect their everyday life than what people even seem to think it really is. But anyway, so yeah, that was about it, and but yeah, so that was about like the case study to kind of give you all an idea of what people feel. So going into like the actual topic itself. So we are all humans. We drink. I mean, we drink. We eat. We drink water. The necessities that we need to survive. And most of us has all at least one person. Everyone on this earth has at least tried almost everything that this world has to offer at least once, hopefully. Of course, like not counting the unknowns, but the ones that we do know, they've at least been consumed at least once. Um, and then we also have like substances that is both for medical and pleasurable use. Of course, the good ones, for example, like if we swallow an aspirin to kind of settle down a headache or any pain that we have. Sometimes we have antibiotics to fight infections. If you have an antibiotic, well, that's where the doctor prescribes amoxicillin, azithromycin, just name a few antibiotics, or even a tranquilizer to calm us down for anxiety purposes, or just needs some type of sedative to relax a little bit. And of course, other ones that is a little bit more common is like drinking coffee to get that boost in the morning, or some wine at the end of the day to relax with friends, family, etc. So, and even though this is a little bit more, I guess, negative, those even cigarettes, they can be they do soothe down the nerves, which honestly that was something that I didn't even know about, that smoking at least cigarettes kind of calms you down. I kind of still don't know how that's possible, but it does, surprisingly. But yeah, so those are kind of common stuff that we use to, well, not counting the cigarettes part, but to kind of help ourselves to either better for pleasure or for medical use. Now, but many of the substances that we are going to talk about, they can harm us physically and both mentally. And because of the misuse of all these different substances, that's the reason why it's become one of today's society's biggest problems. And the thing about this is that more than $600 billion each year is from substance misuse. Now, think about that for a second. $600 billion. That is a mind-blowing amount when you think about it. And yeah, it's really shocking about that. Now, obviously, some actually, again, all these substances, they're either from nature itself, or they also from natural substances, and then we obviously kind of find a way to make that new substance to make it happen. Now, some, like for example, anti-anxiety medication, they obviously need a medication prescription to use. Of course, other substances like alcohol and nicotine, they're legally available to any adult that wants it. Of course, but then there's also like the more harmful ones like heroin and basically any other illegal substances. It's yeah, you're not supposed to, people are not supposed to, get that. But um, of course, in today's society, more people find a way to get that out of nowhere. Anyway, so yeah, so now, so back in I'm gonna be making like a lot of references like towards like a certain year, and then comparing it to today's world, just to kind of give you all like an idea of how much things have changed in, in the past from now. So for example, in 1962, only 4 million people in the US has ever used marijuana, cocaine, heroin, or any other illegal substance. But in today, now it's more than 100 million. That is shocking. Um, yeah, because again, that's like 96 million more people have at least tried an illegal substance use. So, I mean, yeah, and that's within the U.S. alone. Just imagine the nationwide. I mean, no, sorry, not nationwide, international wise. Um, and it's really surprising, So, in fact, 24 million people use illegal substances at least within 1 month alone. So I mean, yeah, it's really shocking about this type of stuff. So then, and then also this kind of also directs towards like even like teenagers, obviously for this type of chapter, because 24% of all high school students have used an illegal drug within also the past month. So 24%, that's almost one quarter of the whole entire high school population. Now, I'll admit, when I was in high school, I didn't know people use some of this stuff, and even till today, I'm still surprised how easily it is available to them without even without this type of stuff. Now, obviously, I don't know like the situations back at home, but still, I mean, it's really just surprising how big of an epidemic this is becoming. Then back, I'm guessing back when I was younger, or even before my generation, even before my generation was. But it really is shocking. So obviously, so to kind of give you a definition of a drug, in general, a drug is basically is any substance other than food that affects our bodies or needs. It, Now, obviously, when you talk about drugs, it does not need to be medicine or be illegal. That's why they kind of use substance. That's why the word substance is used now, because people, a lot of people kind of make that misconception that um, because now they kind of use that alcohol, tobacco, and caffeine are drugs too. Which in reality, it's not really a drug. It's more of a substance. That's why they kind of implement that new, the new term nowadays. But yeah, that's kind of why they use this instead of now. And okay, I'm not sure. Hold on, I got a notification with the bitrate again. Nuts. Okay, sorry guys. Let me see. I'm not having any. Is there any? Okay, hopefully there's not any within. I hope there's not any issues with you all. I guess I'll continue because I mean yeah, it says good. So I mean as long as it's not poor, I guess that's fine. As long as there's no skips, that's all I wanted to know. I just got that notification. But anyway, continuing on. So that's why we kind of use substance now instead of drugs. That's why it doesn't say like drug usage or drug abuse. Now it's just called substance abuse. So obviously when a person takes a substance, whether it's alcohol, cocaine, marijuana, or other type of medication, lots of powerful molecules. This is a little bit going into like the nitty gritty stuff a little bit, but a lot of the molecules from the substance itself, they travel through our bodies going up to the brain, and then when it's there, they set off a lot of chemicals that interferes within the normal function within our brain and body. And then of course from there, that's when substance misuse can also lead to a lot of abnormal functioning. Um, so of course, substances obviously cause temporary changes in behavior, our emotions, and thoughts. That's why a lot of these changes is called substance intoxication. Intoxication. Um, and the reason why is because a lot of alcohol, for example, they can lead to alcohol intoxication. Um, which is obviously a state of poor judgment, mood changes, irritability, slurred speech, and poor coordination. Of course, obviously that's why people. I mean, that's what happens when when people drink a lot of alcohol. For that kind of sticking with that example, obviously. And then of course there's different other types of drugs like LSD that can produce hallucinations, um, which is called which another term which it's kind of called hallucinosis, which obviously is basically a lot of perceptual uh, hallucinations and distortions. So of course, in other words, a lot of people see things that's not really there. They can even sense things that's not there, hear things that's not there. Um, that's what like drugs like LSD uses, or what LSD does when it's misused. Even when it's not used in general. Um, but yeah, that's kind of why it happens. So obviously some substances can have long term consequences. Of course, the reason so when people kind of do that, that's why they develop substance use disorders, which is basically uh, repeated sessions of behaviors and reactions by the use of substances that we use again and again. Now, people with substance disorder, they always crave a specific type of substance, and then they always rely on it excessively. Which of course it damages, friends, family, social relationships, poor functioning at work, and they can be a danger to themselves and even others. Um, and of course, with many people with this type of substance use disorder, they always become physically dependent on the substance, which is another word for tolerance, where they develop a tolerance and they experience withdrawal reactions when they either stop it or take less of the drug that they are used to, or substance when they're used to. So when people obviously have a tolerance, they always need more doses of the same substance to uh, to have the same desired effect that they're used to already. For example, alcohol. In order for someone to get drunk, they only need like at first maybe one or two drinks. This is I don't know how obviously everyone's different when it comes to getting drunk, but it does to kind of continue this as an example. If someone wants a drink, they get drunk within one or two drinks. Now, eventually like maybe within 1 or 2 months, they already develop that tolerance. So what they'll need to do now is take 3 to 4 more drinks to kind of have the same desired effect. Why? Because it's less now, or the reaction is less because they're already building up that usage of it. Um, but yeah, that's kind of where the tolerance is. And then with withdrawal, they always consist of unpleasant and sometimes dangerous symptoms. For example, cramps, anxiety attacks, sweating, nausea. Um, that can occur obviously when people stop taking or even cuts back on the substance that they're used to taking already. So yeah, so again with alcohol, with alcohol, if someone like stops it, they may develop withdrawal symptoms because they're so used to it, and they'll need a way to cope with those withdrawal symptoms and go back to normal. Um, and that's why it's kind of, I guess, hard for people to. I mean, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but that's why it's hard for people to suddenly stop, because it does bring unpleasant withdrawal symptoms, and they feel that it's best to continue taking the drug or substance, then instead of stopping and trying to figure out the withdrawal symptoms as they go along. So going on into the different types. Oh, here it is. Okay. So then in any year, and this is going back to a little bit of statistics, almost 9% of all teens and adults in the US, which is basically over 23 million people, have a substance use disorder. And I mean, yeah, it goes kind of go into like the different, ethnicities and races, but I'm not going to talk about that. It's a little bit too specific. But it does, again, kind of break down into specific, cultures and ethnicities where people, take it more common than others. But it depends on where they are from and whether, what ethnicity they are. Anyway, so moving forward, so these substances go into different categories. Now, there's basically four different kinds of categories. There's depressants, stimulants, hallucinogens, and cannabis. And of course, we're only gonna go over like the most common types of substances that it's more of an issue in today's world. And then, of course, we're going to talk about some interesting disorders. Well, not disorders, but more of actual, I guess, usage that is not necessarily a disorder yet, but it definitely is something to think about. For example, gambling disorder. And even, and surprisingly, even internet gaming disorder. So for everyone who's like, apparently it's not really, I don't think, from what I remember, it's not really a disorder just yet, but it has the tendencies to make like gaming into an addiction. But we'll go over that in a bit. But yeah, so the main topic or the main categories is depressants, stimulants, hallucinogens, and cannabis. So, oh wait, nuts. Okay, hold on, guys. My thing just closed down. Here it is. Okay. So yeah, we start off with, hopefully this works. Okay. Yeah, this should be the right one I'm looking for. Okay, yeah. Sorry, it's because my thing, kind of crashed. So I had to like reopen the ebook to kind of for it to pop up. But let's see. Okay, here we are. Yes, we're back in. Yeah, it's 'cause if I don't switch to a page like within a certain time, it always like takes an effect. But either way, so the first one we're gonna talk about is depressants. So kind of like, I mean, if you know what depression or depression is in general, just like depressants. Depressants slow the activity of our nervous system. Now they produce tension, inhibitions, and obviously interfere with people's judgment, motor activity, and concentration. And the three most widely used groups of depressants that we'll be covering is alcohol, sedative hypnotic drugs, and opioids. So yeah, so we're gonna go over those three different types of depressants here, and then we'll move on to the next section. So the first one, of course, is alcohol, and here's another interesting statistic. The World Health Organization talks about like more than 2 billion people worldwide consume alcohol. I'm not sure how many people on this planet, obviously, but that is a huge number just to consider. So basically in the U.S. alone, more than half of the U.S. They drink alcohol, so that's like 50% of the U.S. Of course not. We're not talking about the people who have a disorder, but in general, how many of us actually consume alcohol in general? Of course, with alcohol, they come in different forms, such as beer, wine, liquor, the Scotch liquor. I think I don't know another no, I think that's a different type of liquor. But anyway, yeah, alcohol comes in all shapes and forms. Again, beer, wine, liquor, um, and it costs billions of dollars each year, just for when they sell it because it's that popular. Um, but anyway, but I mean, in general, if any drink has alcohol, it's considered to be in this category. Um, now here's where we get into some more, like a little bit more of the actual psychology with this stuff. So when people consume five or more drinks of alcohol in one occasion, like, I mean, it doesn't say like, one after another, like maybe one every couple of hours, but it says within one occasion. That's what he called binge drinking episode. Now, 23% of people, at least in the states, um, which, and this is where it gets like interesting because they always mention over the age of 11. Now, I don't know how many like young. I mean, I know like some teenagers drink alcohol, but if 11 or 12-year-olds especially drink alcohol, that is not right. At least in my opinion, because I mean, for them to have put that low of an age, that must mean something where, yeah, even preteens are already drinking alcohol, and that is not a good sign. Um, and I mean, yeah, so I mean, if they talk about like 13 and up, then I mean that is a little more understandable because I mean, of course, teenagers are going through puberty, they're going through adolescent stage already, but 11, that, I mean, they're still children at that age. I mean, sure, the preteens consider, but still, that's not. I mean, that's kind of an alarming thing. But anyway, 23% of people over the age of 11, of course, for alcohol, most of them are males. They binge drink each month, so 23% um, binge drinking. That's still an alarming thing. Again, that's almost 1/4 of the U.S. who drink alcohol. Um, it means that they drink more than five drinks usually. And of course, 6.5% over again the same age, which is 11. Um, they do it at least five times each month of binge drinking. So, which is why themselves are considered heavy drinkers. And with heavy drinkers, which it's kind of surprising because as far as I consider heavy drinkers, um, males outnumber obviously the females by 3 to 2. So every three males that binge drink um, alcohol, they two females do it as well. So yeah, they do have that you know issue with that substance abuse or with alcohol abuse. Um, so all alcoholic beverages they contain, which is something called ethanol alcohol, which is a chemical that is absorbed through the blood of the lining of our stomach and the intestines. The ethanol alcohol obviously takes effect quickly as it travels through our bloodstream and the nervous system within our brain and our spinal cord. And then when it goes through that, it starts to depress or slow the functioning by basically sticking onto various how can I say this like in a simple way. It combines to various nerves that slow down our process. So I'm not going to talk about that. It's a little bit too specific right there. Okay, we'll skip that part. Here it is, right there. Yeah. So at first, ethanol alcohol it kind of depresses the brain that control judgment and inhibition. Well, that's where people become looser, more talkative, more friendly, and then as the and then also they also feel more relaxed, confident, happy. They just feel good, you can say. But then when more alcohol is taken in, it slows down even more parts of the brain and our central nervous system, where they either make less good judgments, their speech becomes slurred, less understandable, they become less coherent, and the memory becomes weaker. So that's when you're already kind of getting into the um, yeah, not that's where you're becoming into the part where it's not tolerable, and people are just becoming more and more drunk per se. Um, and then of course, many people also become emotional and even aggressive at times, and that's where they have that less thinking and judgment. So, and even with more alcohol consumption, the motor skills become less useful, and reaction times also become slower for people. So, in other words, people may become unsteady and they have trouble standing or even walking, and they're usually clumsy in doing simple activities. Of course, like they can drop things, they can bump into doors and furniture, and misjudge distances. Um, and then, of course, physical changes. They can also be the vision becomes blurred, but basically the side vision, more specific, the side vision becomes blurred. And then they also have trouble hearing. And then from all that, people who have drunk too much alcohol have greater trouble driving and solving simple problems. Um, and then the extent. I mean, here here it talks about like how it's determined, like how much alcohol it does to kind of get a person um, drunk, basically. But I guess the way I'll say it is that it just depends by one gender, because males tend to need more alcohol to be more toxic than females. And then of course it determines by how much alcohol is within the drink itself. It just depends on the percentage of alcohol. I think that's why they have like those percentages of I don't know what the word is or what the actual abbreviation is, but I think it's alcohol volume or something like that. And of course, there's like a percentage, like 3%, or I'm not too sure how it works for those, but that's just an example, you know. But yeah, that's how it kind of varies in terms of like, okay, how fast can a person get intoxicated or drunk, and that's why but in general, it does bring a lot of risk, both physical and psychological. When they have that. So we're gonna skip. Wait, what is this? Oh, actually, here they actually do give a table to kind of talk about like a sample of blood alcohol levels, but I'll skip that. Just again, of course, there's like alcohol is into like beer, wine, or liquor. Just depends on if it has alcohol. Basically, that's what it falls into this category. But anyway, so does it continue here about the? Okay, I'm gonna skip the concentration on that. Blood declines. I'm gonna control that. I'm gonna skip that as well. Yeah, it's because I don't want to go into like the breakdown of like what counts as. Just know it does vary. Vary into how much alcohol needs to be consumed in order for a person to become intoxicated. But it does depend on the person's weight, height, gender, and how much alcohol is within the substance itself. But anyway, so alcohol use disorder. So even though it's illegal, alcohol is one of the it's actually one of the most dangerous of recreational drugs, and because the reason why is because one, it kind of extends for the whole entire lifespan, and this is where again that the statistics falls into play, because it's like what and 28% of middle school students admit to some alcohol use, while 39% of high school seniors drink about each month. Now again, high school I've seen that. I've seen that happen, and I've noticed that. But again, middle schoolers, that is where it's like, how is that possible? That doesn't, it's shocking. I mean, eventually, is it gonna get to elementary kids? Um, if this trend does continue, it doesn't. I mean, it really is alarming when you think about it. But yeah, more than one fourth of middle school students admit to at least some alcohol usage. Um, and then of course, and then high school seniors, and then that's what they consume about that. And then 2.2% of high school seniors, again, they drink every day. Um, and then going into like the college, early adulthood life, that's where alcohol misuse is a major problem in college campuses and different environments for young adults, which that is another type of issue alone. But so going into alcohol use disorder, about 6.8% in a year, 6.8% of adults have alcohol use disorder. Of course, alcoholism is a simpler word, but and of course, men does outnumber by women from 2 to 1, and then apparently many teenagers also face this type of issue regarding the alcohol use disorder. Again, we're going back into the type of different demographics in terms of like ethnicities and races. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna skip that one. Skip that one. I don't want to go into like too details in the statistics. Just only like what's like one point I want to reach to you all. Um, okay, well here it is. So basically, generally speaking, people with alcohol use disorder think they drink large amounts of it regularly and rely on it to help them function in their everyday life. Because if not, they will feel more anxious and moody. And then, of course, if they keep doing that, eventually it will interfere with their social behavior and thinking to function and work, and the everyday tasks will be difficult to even do. Um, they may have frequent arguments with family members or friends. They can obviously miss work repeatedly and even lose their jobs if it doesn't, if it doesn't actually change. Um, and actually, here's like an actual physical, I guess, evidence where MRI scans of heavy drinkers, they have different regions of the, they have damaged parts within different parts of the brain, and they have trouble with the memory, speed of thinking, attention skills, and balance. So yeah, that's definitely something that's kind of like what to think about, in terms of the uh, alcohol use disorder. And again, it really is a bit of a attention need for that. But anyway, so there was like a little article that does talk about college particular binge drinking, and I'm not gonna read all of it, but I do want to point out at least some of the stuff for you all. So I kind of go maybe like through this whole list only. So here's some like again statistics for binge drinking in colleges in general. So alcohol related arrests count for 83% of all campus arrests. More than half of all sexual assaults on college campuses involve the heavy consumption of alcohol, meaning that basically from heavy drinking, sexual assaults tend to be more frequent because of that. Alcohol may be a factor in 40% of academic problems and 28% of all instances of dropping out of college, which means alcohol is a factor of, maybe not going to school every day, doing poorly on exams and assignments, and of course, they can eventually lead for people to drop out of college because of those pre existing factors alone already. And then going back into students, so 700,000 students each year are physically or emotionally traumatized by a student drinker. And yeah, it's a bit worrying right there. And then half of college students say drinking to get drunk is an important reason for drinking. Now, I don't mean to laugh at this, but it's surprising that even college students, well, at least from what it says here, that it still says this. I wouldn't say maybe teenagers, but college students. I mean, they're still like 18, 19, but by then I would imagine at least their brain, well, yeah, they be almost done with the puberty adolescent stage. But from what it says here, half of them say drinking to get drunk. That's their important reason to drink in the first place. Um, I mean, no, that's definitely not a really good reason why to drink in the first place. So yeah. But anyway, binge drinking often has a lingering effect on mood, memory, brain functioning, and health functioning, which is true because even though it's got out of your system, it still plays an effect eventually on your mood. It still makes you trouble remembering things, and it doesn't play an effect on your heart eventually. Binge drinking has led to 1,700 deaths and 500 more than half a million injuries every year, and that's a lot of numbers to be affected by. And then the number of female binge drinkers, at least within college students, has increased to 31% over the past decade. Meaning is that yeah, more females are drinking or binge drinking more than what it used to be in the back in the day. So it definitely is a big problem, especially for the college students as well. That's why alcohol. I mean, I do kind of agree. Alcohol is one of the most dangerous substances out there since it is the most usable and most easiest way to get, you know, into a problem since it is legal and anyone over the age of, well, at least from what I know, I think this is all of U.S. Over the age of 21, you need to get alcohol. So that's how people actually, get that stuff. Anyway, what was I going back into? Okay, so that was kind of like the main points of the article itself. I was not gonna read the whole thing, obviously, but anyway, so people's patterns of alcohol is vary. Some drink large amounts every day, and then some other people go on periodic binges of heavy drinking that lasts weeks to months. So in other words, they remain intoxicated for days and later be unable to remember anything about that period since they were drunk that whole period. Still, others may limit their excessive drinking to weekends, evenings, or both, a combination of both. Um, and yeah, hopefully I'm not. Am I still lagging? Hopefully I'm not. I don't want to lag again. Hopefully I'm not. Okay, well it's back to excellent. Okay, no, I'm not having any problems anymore. Okay, just want to make sure of that. But anyway, guys. Okay, so now here's where the tolerance and withdrawal does happen. Let me actually go back over here. Okay, yeah. So for many people, alcohol use includes the symptoms of tolerance and withdrawal reactions. As they build up the tolerance of alcohol, they need to drink large amounts to kind of feed the addiction process. And when they try and stop or when they try and drink less, they have withdrawal symptoms. So for example, within hours, the hands, tongue, and eyelids begin to shake. They feel weak and exhausted. They sweat, vomit, heart speed rapidly, and the blood pressure can even rise from the alcohol taken in. They can also become anxious, depressed, unable to sleep, or irritable from the withdrawal reactions as well. So a small percentage of people with alcohol disorder go through a particularly dramatic withdrawal reaction called delirium tremens. Basically, it's kind of a withdrawal symptoms, which it kind of consists of terrifying hallucinations that begin 3 days after the that becomes 3 days after they stop or reduce their drinking process. And of course, some people, some even may even see some small figures chasing or crawling on them, or objects dancing about in front of their eyes. And here's actually an example where they talk about their own experience of a hallucination, um, of delirium tremens. So, open quote, I didn't know how long I was asleep, but there was an awful scream and I was up. There was Pap looking wild and skipping around every which way and yelling around snakes. He said they was crawling up on his legs, and then he would give a jump and scream, and say one had bit him on the cheek, but I couldn't see no snakes. He started and ran around, hollering, "Take them off! He's biting me on the neck." I never see a man look so wild in his eyes. Pretty soon he fell down, panting them all over, kicking things every which way, and striking and grabbing at the air with his hands and screaming. There was devils a hold of him. He wore out by and by, he says. That's the okay. No, I'm not gonna. Okay, unquote. I'm not gonna say that parts. Then he went down in all fours and crawled off, begging them to let him be alone. And then unquote. So yeah, as you can see here, this person had like hallucination reaction from alcohol withdrawal, and I didn't even know about this myself either, but it does happen. I get from what it says. So it's not uncommon. I mean, I guess this isn't uncommon for it to happen even with alcohol itself. And they develop that, those withdrawal symptoms from alcohol by stopping. How much more do we have on alcohol? I'm actually surprised this is a little bit more longer than what I thought it was. Okay, well, we still have just a little bit to go on alcohol. Depends on, so let me see. I wanna see if this actually does, like, if I need to talk about this or not. Maybe I can skip this. Okay, so I'll to kind of sum up on this part, I'll say 30% of all car accidents are from intoxicated drivers, and basically about 12,000 deaths each year, which that does make sense. 11% of adults have driven while intoxicated at least once in the past year. So I mean, yeah. So I guess a general thing: don't drink and drive. Definitely dangerous. Highly do not recommend it because yeah, it's definitely dangerous. But apparently back in 2002, 14% of adults have driven in intox. So it's a little bit less than what it was, I guess, a decade ago. A little more than a decade ago, but still, 11%. That's still about 12,000 deaths. That's a really high number for anyone to ignore. And then now, okay, no, I don't want to talk about that. It's a little bit more specific. Persons. Okay, so I mean, I guess yeah, this is, and then long-term excessive use can obviously have on a person's physical health called cirrhosis, which, if you haven't heard about it, it's basically which the liver becomes scarred and dysfunctional because the liver does try and process all that alcohol, but eventually they are unable to. So cirrhosis accounts for more than 32,000 deaths each year. And the alcohol use disorder can damage the heart and even liver. The heart, and even lower this immune system's ability to fight off infections, which in turn it creates more sickness to them by they may end up having cancer, HIV, AIDS, and of course different types of other serious, infections or diseases because the immune system is so weak. Okay, so I'm gonna skip that article. It's not important over here. Okay, well, Well, this one kind of talks about like nutritional problems. Just know that it does kind of become, they become weak. They also have disease. The vitamin and mineral deficiencies may also arise because of the heavy drinking. So if I skip about that, let me see. Woman. Okay. Now this one is a little bit important, a little bit more important for me to, I guess, discuss. And this is woman during pregnancy drinking. Um, Obviously, when females drink while they're pregnant, they obviously put the babies at risk. Excessive alcohol use during pregnancy can cause babies to be born with a actual syndrome called fetal alcohol syndrome, which is basically a lot of abnormalities that can include basically intellectual disability disorder, hyperactivity, head and face deformities, heart defects, and slow growth. Um, it, uh, so basically, about one every 1,000 babies um, who are problem drinkers happens. Or basically every 29 or 1,000 babies also happen. Um, and I mean, yeah, it's unfortunate they have this type of issue over here. But yeah, it's something to think about in terms of like the statistics again. Um, and of course, a lot of heavy drinking early on in the pregnancy can lead to miscarriages. Basically, which again, it's about 8.5% of pregnant women have drunk alcohol during the past month, and 2.7% have had binge drinking episodes. So it doesn't tell me like the actual numbers here, but again, 8.5%. That's almost 1/10 of every pregnant woman. Um, so I mean, yeah, with all the births, I mean, it really does. It's still an alarming rate when you think about it. Um, but yeah, I'm sorry, guys. Let's see. So we're done with alcohol, and yeah, that's about alcohol. And then yeah, we're gonna finish with this one I mean, we're gonna continue on with another one called which, hold on, I want to double check my stream health here. Because I want to make sure, because I feel like sometimes it's buffering, but then it's not, and I don't want for that to happen again, which I don't know why I keep having some issues with the bitrate and all that. It's been happening for basically this whole past week, ever since I did the Mario Maker stream 2 this past Saturday, which I'm not sure why that's been happening. But either way, hopefully I'll fix that out. Anyway, so moving on into the different kinds of depressants, there is something called sedative hypnotic drugs. So basically, they're called anxiolytic, which means anxiety reducing type of drugs. They produce feelings of relaxation and drowsiness. At low dosages, which basically it kind of means like the prescribed dosage of these drugs. Um, they have a calming and sedative effects, which obviously helps people with anxiety. They helps people maybe like even with ADHD, for example, perhaps, or any type of certain what is it? A certain type of anxiety related disorder or stress disorder even. These drugs do help them at low dosage or prescribed doses, if that makes sense. There's even, I mean, they are also sleep inducers or hypnotics, and of course, like these type of the class of drugs that they fall into is either barbiturates and benzodiazepines. Um, yeah, I don't know the specifics on those, but yeah, that's kind of like the classes they fall into. So actually, they kind of talk about barbiturates a little bit over here. Um, no, I don't want to talk about that. No, 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 no. Okay. Okay. So I won't talk about like the history of how it was discovered, obviously, but what I'll talk about barbiturates is they usually are taken in pill or capsule forms. In low doses, like obviously like prescribed doses, they reduce a person's level of excitement in the same way that alcohol does. Uh, by something with the nervous system, they receive the some type of communication uh, by slowing down the neurons within the brain and all that stuff. But going back to just as they do, so like alcohol, they are broken down in the liver as well. Although too high a level, the drugs can halt breathing, lower blood pressure, and even lead to coma and death. So yeah, so if they take too high of barbiturates, they will have a lot of serious health issues immediately, if you think about it. So barbiturates, so repeated use of barbiturates can create a sedative hypnotic use disorder. So basically, people spend much of the day intoxicated, irritable, and unable to do the work. Some organize their lives around the drug and needing a lot of it to calm down or fall asleep. Um, so basically, a major problem of the barbiturate tolerance is that the drug remains the same even while the body is building up a tolerance to it. Sorry, guys. Let me see real quick. I think I almost on my mic a little bit close. Anyway, so yeah, basically, and people who once they have developed the tolerance, they are likely to increase the amount of what it's supposed to be taken without medical supervision, and eventually may have a dose that becomes fatal to them. The person may also have withdrawal symptoms if they do stop it or decrease it, like alcohol, but it's like nausea, anxiety, and sleep problems. And then, of course, barbiturate withdrawal is dangerous because it can cause convulsions. If I'm not mistaken of if I'm thinking it's the right way, it's seizures. Um, which yeah, that definitely is not good if they have that, because if you have a seizure, then that does produce another type of different medical issues right there. Um, and yeah, so anyway, we're going back. So then now we're gonna go into benzodiazepines real quick over here. And benzodiazepines are specifically anti-anxiety drugs. And like some of the more popular ones available right now in today's world, it's Xanax, Ativan, and Valium. They're I mean they're three. They're just three of the dozens of these within medical use. And here's a surprising thing: over 130 million prescriptions are written annually for benzodiazepines. And yeah, that is a lot of prescriptions. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think one of the um, benzodiazepines is one of the most 10 common prescriptions in the U.S. that is made. So yeah, that is a lot of prescriptions, and that's where it kind of falls into play of abuse and misusage. So like alcohol and barbiturates, they calm people by the same reason, by the chemicals attached to the nervous system, and they increase the reactions. Um, Benzodiazepines, however, they relieve anxiety without making people as drowsy as other types of sedative hypnotics. Um, they are also less likely to slow people's breathing, and they are less likely to cause death at the event of an overdose. Of course, it's still possible, but it's less likely for it to happen. Um, so when okay, let's skip that. Uh, so basically, the last thing of sedative hypnotic uh, uh, medications. Over a year, 0.03% of all adults in the U.S. have a barbiturate or benzodiazepine use disorder, and as many as 1% have one of these disorders over the course of their lives. So, It's not a lot, obviously, but still, I mean, just imagine how many people within the U.S. I mean, it may not be like in the millions, but still, maybe like what, a couple 100,000 perhaps. If it if they really do, like for example, if they do prescribe 130 million prescriptions, um, 0.03% or 1%, that's yeah, that's a couple thousand already over there. So it's still something to keep an eye on when it comes to these type of medications. Now the last one, as far as a depressant, it's opioids. Now, if you don't know what opioids are, it's basically, in general, pain medication. Um, so basically, opium is so several forms of opium is heroin, morphine, and codeine. Now, opium itself, so it's been available for thousands of years, obviously, um, and a lot of people prescribe it or use some of these opioids to reduce pain, both physical and emotional. Which, um, I'm not sure how emotional opioids are used. I know physical it makes sense, but I never heard of emotional pain for opioids. If it is, I mean, that's kind of interesting. I would like to know more about that. But yeah, that's something I never really thought of about that. Um, and then of course, morphine is also one as well. Why do you sell the drug? Okay, so yeah, so basically it leads to addictions as well. So many, yeah. So it's about, yeah, opioids and then morphine. Okay, yeah. So then another one is called, obviously the last one is heroin. For several years, heroin was basically viewed as a wonder drug and was even used as cough medicine and for other medical purposes. However, a lot of doctors learned that it's even more addictive than other opioids, and that's why they kind of they uh, they made opioids illegal except for medical purposes, um, because that's why heroin is illegal in today's world as well. Um, so I'm gonna skip. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna skip that. Uh, okay, here it is. Okay, so yeah, so this is how, and I mean, yeah, technically these are narcotics. If you want a better, like a simple definition of it. Um, yeah, opioids are narcotics. For example, morphine. If I was saying anything, tramadol is a narcotic-like medication where it does. Sorry, okay. Well, yeah, where tramadol, it's not necessarily like it's not morphine, but I know it does have similar properties of morphine. Um, and I know the cyclobenzaprine. No, but then no, I'm sorry, I take that back. Cyclobenzaprine is a muscle relaxant, and even though it does kind of, you can probably build up a tolerance on that one as well. It's not a narcotic per se, so it's not really considered an opioid as well. Anyway, yeah, so that's what narcotics are. Just think of like any major pain medication you've ever heard of or have taken. That is considered a narcotic. Codeine, also for example, is one as well. But yeah, so going back into this, so most narcotics are either smoked, inhaled, snorted, injected by needle, or injected directly into the bloodstream. Um, Injection seems the most common method for narcotic use, although the other, okay, no, an injection always brings a rush, basically a spasm, a warmth, and ecstasy that is sometimes, this is gonna get a little bit more of an adult, a little bit of an adult over here, but when injecting it gives a spasm of warmth and ecstasy that it's sometimes compared with an orgasm, if that makes sense. So yeah, so the brief spasm is followed by several hours of pleasant feeling called a high or nod. During a high, the drug user feels relaxed, they feel happy, don't even feel concerned about food, um, uh, uh, but how do I say, intimacy or other bodily needs that everyone needs. So opioids create these effects by depressing the central nervous system again, of course, like depressing it, particularly the centers that help control emotion. Um, So yeah, so what are the dangers of opioid use? So again, heroin provides a good example of the dangers of opioid use. The most immediate danger of heroin use is an overdose, obviously, which closes the respiratory system down and almost paralyzing breathing and, in many cases, causing death. So basically, if anyone actually overdoes opioids, they slow down the breathing process and it can cause death because of that. Death is obviously particularly likely during sleep when a person is unable to fight this effect by consciously working to breathe. So, for example, if someone falls asleep, the breathing slows down already. Um, and with the opioids in the system, they do not are able to fight it off. So that can probably be like again unintentional deaths right there. Um, but yeah, so people who resume heroin use after having avoided for some amount of time may take the mistake of taking the same dose they had built up before. Um, they can no longer tolerate this high level of heroin use. Of yeah, um, and yeah, there's been a 50% increase of the number of deaths caused by heroin overdoses in the past decade. Each year, 2% of these addicted to heroin and other opioids die under the drug's influence, usually from an overdose. So yeah, from there, that's where again, it comes kind of into unintentional deaths, but that's what happens. So, so I'm not gonna talk about that. Okay, now we'll skip that. We'll skip that. It's not. It's just again more a little bit specific statistics, and I don't want to do too much of those. That's not necessary, honestly. Um, so yeah, so now we're done with depressants. So that is it for that. And the next category that I'm going into is a stimulant. Now, just by the word, stimulant is the opposite of depressant. And yeah, so stimulants are basically substances that increase the activity of the nervous system. They can increase blood pressure, the heart rate, alertness, behavior, thinking, energy, obviously, and among the most troublesome stimulants are cocaine and amphetamines. However, yeah, but however, no, I'm sorry. What was it? Yeah, people are very similar. Um, so when people report different effects, it's because they have taken different amounts of the drugs. Um, Now, two of the most widely used illegal stimulants are, and this will probably, I don't know if it's a shocker for y'all, but um, if you don't know about this does kind of consider as a substance, and it's caffeine and nicotine. Although nicotine, I don't think I'm gonna cover that too much here because that was more of an article. But yeah, caffeine and nicotine is also a stimulant that definitely can build up a symptoms or an addiction to that. So to kind of start off with the stimulant, we'll do cocaine. So cocaine is the central active ingredient of a coca plant found in South America. So let me see. Okay, so basically, processed cocaine is a odorless white powder. For recreational use, it is obviously snorted or sniffed, if that makes sense. I don't know why I don't know why they use snorted. It really should just be like sniffing it or just well, for example, if you sniff it, I mean, not all of it really does go inside your nose, but um, I mean, I don't even know how that works either way. But either way, yeah, it's basically snorted, and passes through the mucous membrane of the nose. Now, people actually do prefer intensifying the effects by either injecting it or smoking it through pipes or cigarettes. And let me see what this actually is. Hold on, let me see if I. Okay, I'm not sure. I don't remember this example being here on my new textbook. Because I'm seeing a case. Well, it's not really a case study. It's just more. Um, no, I don't even think this was even in my textbook. At least my version of the textbook. But it's not really much of a. Uh, it's not really much of a good reason or a good like case study. Like it doesn't really describe the experience. But in fact, let me actually double check on that because I'm not too sure why that's there. Oh, sorry. There you go. Sorry, guys. Yeah. Let me actually check that out real quick. Yeah. Let me actually check that out. Yeah. Sorry, guys. It's because I don't remember that example being in my book. At least in my version of the book. Um, I'm not sure why that case study is, because usually the case study is always like the same. I'll be surprised if this one is actually different. Let me see over here. Okay. Okay, I think I do have. I think I know why, but now does it show the same? Actually, it doesn't. Interesting. Oh, actually, no. I'm sorry. Yeah, actually, it does. Yeah, I'm not sure why. And I wonder why this book has this type of case study. Um, but yeah, no, that's not. That's not what. I'm not gonna read this one. Yeah, because this isn't really much relevant to this what I'm trying to talk about. But anyway, so yeah, so for years, cocaine always had problems aside from intoxication and even psychosis. Um, Let me see. Here it is. So here's where again it goes back into the history and then into today's standards. So, what was I talking about over here? Sorry, guys. Let's see. So over here, an estimated. Oh yeah. Okay. So in the 1960s, 10,000 people in the U.S. have tried cocaine. However, compared to today's standards, there's 28 million people, and 1.6 million have either tried it, either teenagers or adults, and are using it currently. So again, big, massive change when it comes to the use of, well, in this case, cocaine. And yeah, that's definitely a big difference from them. So yeah, so 1.1%, and going back to high school, 1.1% of high school seniors have used cocaine within the past month, and almost 2.6 have used it within the past year. So, so yeah, out of all, that's a lot. That definitely is a lot of people to, yeah, to see. Um, sorry. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Um, so yeah, so the risks. Let me see over here. Oh no. This is actually a little bit more. No, it's actually. Interesting. Anyway, so yeah. I was reading some of the data table over here, but Yeah, so cocaine brings an euphoric rush of well-being and confidence. Given in high doses, this can result in so so basically with a high enough dosage, this rush can also be also like heroin or like I mentioned in the opioids. It can be orgasmic. Um, at first, cocaine stimulates the high centers, obviously again with the nervous system, making users feel excited, energetic, talkative, and even euphoric. As well, it's taken, it stimulates other centers of the central nervous system, producing a faster pulse, higher blood pressure, faster and deeper breathing, and further arousal in wakefulness. So cocaine apparently produces the effects largely by increasing supplies of the. So yeah, it's about how they always it stimulates everyone. Um, so so that's cocaine. However, I don't think that there is. I mean, the thing is about what's because it kind of like it's weird how they actually put it here. It's like smoking is with inside cocaine itself, but yes. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna go over smoking. Um, just know that it is a stimulant and it is possible for it to be addictive. And that's why even though it's legal, it's not really good that you take it. Um, but anyway, so high doses. Going back into cocaine real quick. So high doses of the drug produce cocaine intoxication, and the symptoms are poor muscle coordination, grandiosity, bad judgment, anger, aggression, compulsive behavior, anxiety, and confusion. Some people, like the example I'm going to talk about in a bit, they have hallucinations, delusions, or both. A combination called cocaine-induced psychosis. Um, so yeah, so okay, whoops, sorry about that, guys. Sorry about that, guys. Hold on for a quick second. Okay, I was trying to check something real quick over here. Um, but yeah, so that's what. So yeah, cocaine can also have something called cocaine-induced psychosis. Um, Sorry, guys, I thought I was actually a bit off again for a second there. Yeah, I know. Sorry about that. But anyway, so cocaine-induced psychosis. So this is kind of like an example of what a person went through, um, going through a hallucination through cocaine. So here it is. Open quote. A young man described how off how after freebasing he went to his closet to get his clothes, but his suit asked him, "What do you want?" Afraid, he walked toward the door, which told him, "Get back," retreating. He then heard the sofa say, "If you sit on me, I'll kick your butt." With a sense of impending doom, intense anxiety, and momentary panic, the young man went to a hospital where he received help. Um, and yeah, that's where it kind of gets a little bit and oh, end quote right there. Yeah, so as you can see, like this person had some type of psychotic episode, and they definitely needed help because from these hallucinations. Um, and then of course, as the stimulant effects of cocaine go away, people go through depression like letdown, but probably basically it's called crashing, a pattern that may include headaches, dizziness, and fainting. For occasional users, the after effects usually disappear within 24 hours, but they might last longer for people who have a particularly high dose. Um, and then people may actually, feel deep sleep. In some cases, even a coma. They can go into a coma. Um, Cocaine use has been linked to many also suicides as well. Um, which is true. I think some celebrities have actually passed away. I think to kind of give an example, I think some celebrities have died because of cocaine use, which is unfortunate. Which actually I think there's a example here. I think let me see real quick. Sorry, okay. Sorry about that. So cocaine use is made by Oh yeah, one example was Whitney Houston, and the reason why is because accidental drowning caused in part by heart disease and her abuse of cocaine and perhaps other drugs. So um, that is an example of her death, unfortunately. Sorry guys. Anyway, so that was about it for cocaine. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. So obviously the greatest danger of it is overdose. That's the main thing people look out for. Excessive doses have a strong effect. Sorry guys. Let me see. Real quick, I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. Okay. I think I got it. So yeah. So the greatest use of cocaine is overdose, or the greatest danger. Sorry. So they have a strong effect on the respiratory of the brain. Um, and if we're stimulating when depressing it, the breathing may stop eventually from overdosing on it itself. They can even create fatal heart irregularities or even brain seizures that brings breathing or heart functioning to a sudden stop. Um, but yeah, so that's what can happen. So it can cause heart functioning to stop. So in addition, pregnant women who use cocaine have a risk of miscarriage or having children with predispositions to later drug use and with other abnormalities in immune functioning, attentioning and learning, thyroid size, and dopamine and serotonin activity in the brain. Um, so yeah, so that is the dangers of cocaine in general, and that is why, I mean, one, it is illegal in the first place. But that's why it really is a dangerous threat to people who actually use this because it can be fatal for themselves and for others. Um, okay, so I think the next one is amphetamines. So these are amphetamines are a way to hold on. Uh, okay, guys. Sorry about that. I'm not sure if we can hear something in the background. I don't mean for it to be that loud. But anyway, hopefully it is. Hopefully it's not a bother. And you can still understand me. But anyway, so yeah, so amphetamines. So moving on to amphetamines. Amphetamines are basically drugs that are manufactured. So these are kind of like in the laboratory type of drugs. So of course the some examples are amphetamine. I'm sorry, yeah. Dextroamphetamine and metamethamphetamine. So amphetamines became popular with people trying to lose weight. Apparently, athletes seeking an extra burst of energy, soldiers, truck drivers, and pilots trying to stay awake, and students studying for exams through the night. Yeah, and they are far and shoot that now. A lot of doctors now know that it's far too dangerous to be used casually, and they prescribe them much less freely. Um, and yeah, that's why it's kind of dangerous to even take them in the first place. Again, also. Uh, guys, I'm not too sure. Oh my gosh, so many notifications I tell you. And my phone is about to die. Okay. Hold on, guys. Let me put you on hold for 1 second while I actually try and yeah, put my thing. While I try and get my phone charger real quick. I'll be right back in like not even a minute, honestly. I'm back. Yeah, I should be back. Sorry about that, guys. My phone was about to die, and I did not want for it to die. Anyway, so going back to it, but I did mention I'll be back, so I am back now. Either way, so amphetamines are most often taken in pill or capsules. Some people also, unfortunately, they inject the drugs intravenously or smoke them for a quicker, more powerful effect. Like cocaine, amphetamines increase energy and alertness and reduce appetite when taken in small doses. And of course, they can produce a rush, intoxication, and psychosis in higher doses, and cause an emotional letdown as they leave the body. Like cocaine, amphetamines stimulate the central nervous system by increasing the chemicals throughout the brain chemicals. Although the actions of amphetamines differ from cocaine. So it's kind of mostly the same thing except for different types of things, for different specifics. But yeah, it pretty much is one and the same thing. So one kind of amphetamine, methamphetamine, nicknamed crank, apparently has surged in popularity in recent years and so warrants special focus. 6% of people, again with the over age of 11, have used methamphetamine at least once. Around 0.2% use it currently, and is obviously it's kind of basically like crystal meth, technically. Crystal meth and ice, which uses smoke. So most of the is made. Okay, I'm not going to talk about that. That's a bit too specific right there. Yeah, no, it's also too specific. Just again, it's dangerous. It's linked to emergency room visits a lot throughout the parts of the country over here. Okay, so here's something that's a little bit different now. So methamphetamine is about as likely to be used by women as men. So around 40% of current users taking methamphetamine are women. The drug is particularly popular like around biker gangs, rural Americans, and urban gay communities, and has gained wide use as a club drug. The term for those drugs that used regularly find their way to all-night dance parties. Or raves, technically. You could just say that. So like all other amphetamines, I still can't say that right. Methamphetamine. Methamphetamine increases the activity, again, same thing, like kind of like with the other amphetamines. Negative users on the physical, mental, and social life. It creates damages nerve endings, which is called neurotoxicity. But users focus more on immediate positive impact, including perceptions by many that makes them feel hypersexual and uninhibited. So that is about, okay. So then, of course, stimulant use disorder. Regular use of either cocaine or amphetamines may lead to stimulant use disorder. Now, this basically it does dominate again, like the person's life. The person may remain under the drug's effects every day and function poorly in social relationships and at work. Regular may cause problems in short-term memory and attention span issues. They can develop tolerance, withdrawal reactions to the drug, and they would need to take higher doses to get the same effects. But if they stop it, then they go through deep depression, fatigue, sleep problems, irritability, and anxiety. These can last for weeks to months after the drug use has ended, and within a year, 0.4% of all people, once again, over the age of 11, display stimulant use disorder that is centered on cocaine, and 0.2% display stimulant use disorder centered on amphetamines. So, yeah, so it definitely is, again, an issue. May not be high, but it really really is kind of big. Now we're going to go into the last one, at least for amphetamines. I'm sorry, stimulants. And that is actually something that we all use every day. Or at least everyone takes on it mostly on a daily basis. And you might want to put your cup of joe down for this one, literally, because it's caffeine. It's actually, yes, caffeine itself. So this is obviously the world's most loosely used stimulant. Around 80% of the world's population takes it daily. Most of the caffeine is taken in the form of coffee from the coffee bean, and the rest is consumed either in tea, from like tea leaf, cola nut, so-called energy drinks, chocolate from the cocoa bean, and numerous prescription over-the-counter medications such as Excedrin. So around 99% of ingested caffeine is absorbed by the body and reaches its peak concentration within an hour. It acts as a stimulant within the body and produces a release of neurotransmitters in the brain. It raises a person's arousal in motor activity, which reduces fatigue, obviously. It can disrupt mood, fine motor movement, and reaction time, which in turn interferes with sleep. At high doses, it increases gastric acid secretions in the stomach and the rate of breathing. So in other words, you can have like fast breathing and maybe even high heart rate if you actually drink coffee a lot. More than 2 to 3 cups of brewed coffee, which is about 250. Well, no, that's a little bit too detailed right there. But yeah, 2 or 3 cups of coffee can produce caffeine intoxication, which includes which symptoms is restlessness, nervousness, anxiety, stomach disturbances, twisting, and a fast heart rate. Now, doses larger than 10 grams of coffee, which is about 100 cups of coffee, which I don't think no one has probably taken that. If you do, you may want to cut back a little bit on that. It can cause grand mal seizures and fatal respiratory failure. So yeah, it definitely is. I mean, again, I'm pretty sure no one does take more than not even a 2 or 3 cups of coffee a day. But 100 cups of coffee is fatal, obviously. So many people who suddenly stop or cut back on the usual intake of caffeine, even if the consumption is low for regular people, which is about 2.5 cups of coffee daily or 7 cans of cola, which 7 cans of cola, that's a lot itself. I can't even finish one Coke a day. And yeah, some cans that's a lot. But they all have withdrawal symptoms. Um, so you have caffeine-filled drinks and food for about 2 days. Let me see. Oh no, sorry. They have headaches, depression, anxiety, fatigue. Um, they can even use no, sorry, no. Yeah, those are the symptoms of withdrawal. Like again, depression, anxiety, and fatigue. That's the main symptoms of caffeine withdrawal right there. Um, Now, if you go into now, the thing about caffeine is not that I mean, even though like the DSM-5, which if you haven't heard about that, it kind of I mean, I recommend watching the first episode, but the DSM-5 is basically a manual where we learn about okay what actual conditions is which and what does it fall under on. Even though this or they kind of understand that people go through caffeine intoxication and caffeine withdrawal, it's not as bad as the other stimulants to kind of have a caffeine use disorder as an actual category of a mental health condition. It uses disorder as a condition that received supporting in some studies, but they don't have enough information about that. So it could be in future. It could be in future versions of the book that they create. But if not, then I mean, it's still something to consider about as terms of overdosing on caffeine. And oh boy, so many notifications here, guys. Okay, there you go. Hopefully that does solve that. Okay, I think I got that. Okay, awesome. Okay, so yeah, so yeah, they really don't consider caffeine to be an actual category yet. Um, so yeah, but if they do, then it'll be something that they would consider regarding like what we talked about in terms of withdrawal symptoms, the usage, and all that stuff. Um, Let me see. So no, it's not. It's kind of like a general thing about caffeine. I don't need to go over that. So I think that's about it for caffeine. So again, caffeine itself is fine. Don't get me wrong. Everyone drinks caffeine. I sometimes drink a soda too, um, every now and then. But I guess just too like what I mentioned. Too much of a good thing is bad for you as well. Um, so I really do recommend that if you want coffee, definitely do. I mean that's fine. Just maybe not overdose it, not overdo it. Because yeah, it may not be that bad as far as like the effects, but um, always yeah, those definitely such thing as too good. No, there's too much of a good thing is bad for you. Um, but yeah, so yeah, so going back into let me see. But anyway, yeah, so that's about it for actually the stimulants, everyone. So again, so yeah, so caffeine, but going back on caffeine real quick, it's fine to have a cup. Just yeah, this too much thing of a good thing. Um, but yeah, so I mean yeah, everyday things can also be addictive and all that stuff. But yeah, but anyway, so that's about it for stimulants. So we've gone over depressants and stimulants already. So I think there's only it's kind of funny because I think this is the last section that we need, if I'm not mistaken. Um, as far as like the actual substances themselves, I don't want to like be I don't want to be too sure about that. I think that this should be the last one. Oh yeah, yeah it is. Okay, yeah. So we have one more basically one more what is it category to go through, and that is hallucinogens, cannabis, and combinations of substances. So I guess you can say this is kind of like where various drugs, like the ones I guess that don't fit into an actual category itself. Um, but these definitely do, deserve to be recognized because these are also problematic stuff as well. Well, at least hallucinogens, because cannabis is right now a bit of a controversy for that. But anyway, so yeah, other substances may cause problems for their users and society. Hallucinogens produce delusions, hallucinations, and other sensory changes. Cannabis produces sensory changes, but it has a depressant and stimulant effects, so it is and so it's considered apart from hallucinogens. And many people take combinations of substances, which is basically one like for example, one stimulant and then one depressant. Yeah, that's what it is. So going into hallucinogens, they basically are substances that cause powerful changes in sensory perception, from strengthening a person's normal perceptions to produce illusions and hallucinations. They produce sensations that they are sometimes called trips. And these trips may be exciting or frightening, and it always depends on how the person's mind reacts with the actual drug itself, which is basically another word from psychedelic drugs. So different hallucinations include LSD, mescaline, psilocybin, and MDMA, or ecstasy, for a simpler word. Many of these substances come from plants and animals. Others are produced in actual, labs or human use. So, starting with LSDs, which is basically lysergic acid diethylamide. One of the most famous and most powerful hallucinations is LSD. So I'm gonna skip like obviously the history behind it. LSD brings on a state of hallucination intoxication, sometimes called hallucinosis, marked by a general strengthening of perceptions, particularly visual perceptions, and then physical symptoms. People may focus on small details like the skin or individual blades of grass. Colors may seem a bit off, or even take in a shade of purple. People may have illusions in which objects seem distorted and appear to move, breathe, or change shape. A person under the influence of LSD may also hallucinate, obviously, seeing people, objects, or forms that are not actually present. So you can tell that, they'll think, like, for example, a talking dog is in front of them. And, in reality, it isn't. That's kind of what happens when they talk about that. So it kind of talks about, no, here's ecstasy over here, but do I actually talk about ecstasy in the separate, or is it just cannabis? Huh. Want to make sure, well, no, that's actually kind of, this kind of end right there. So again, with ecstasy, I'm not gonna go into too details because it's like in another article type thing. So I'm only gonna go over like the main points of it, like usual. So ecstasy produces psychological problems such as confusion, depression, sleep difficulties, severe anxiety, and paranoid thinking. You can also have impaired memory and thinking skills. Those physical symptoms as well, such as tension, nausea, blurred vision, faintness, and chills. Increases in heart rate and blood pressure, reduce sweat production, and potential liver damage. So that's kind of what ecstasy does. Which again, I don't know why they have it separate, like in the middle of LSD. It's kind of weird, but that's a little bit of ecstasy for you. Just I just give like the potential dangers of what it is. Either way, so going back to LSD. So it can also cause people to hear sounds more clearly, feel tingling or numbness in the limbs, or confuse the sensation of hot and cold. Sometimes they feel like the sensations is not actually real. For example, if something's hot, they don't feel it, but that's how they get badly burned in the first place. And they also cause different senses to cross, an effect called synesthesia. Colors, for example, may be heard or felt. Which I'm not sure how that's supposed to work, and that sounds like a little bit scary when you think about it. Yeah, I wouldn't want. Yeah, it definitely does sound a bit more like dangerous in my opinion. But yeah, definitely is a lot more dangerous for that. But going back, yeah. Sometimes they feel colors or hear colors. LSD also can bring strong emotions, from joy to anxiety and depression. And the perception of time is told dramatically. For example, um, like let's say it's past 5 minutes. Well, that person may feel like it's been like a couple of hours. Um, that's an example. That's from what I think what they mean so dramatically. Long forgotten thoughts and feelings may resurface. Physical symptoms is sweating, palpitations, blurred vision, tremors, poor coordination. All of these take place while the user is fully awake and alert, and they wear off in about 6 hours. So, despite all this, um, it doesn't affect like their like how they react to sensations. I mean, they react whether they're awake or if they're like drowsy. No, they're fully awake and they know that it's happening. Which again, that's so scary just to think about that. Um, but yeah, guys. So again, the only reason why it happens because of the drug kind of attaches again with the nervous system, changing the activity of like the brain and all that stuff. So let me see. So yeah, so that's what can happen about that. Um, so going into percentage, more than 14% of people in the U.S. have used LSD or another hallucinogen at some point in their lives. 0.4% or 1.1 million people are currently using them. That is a lot of people. And although people do not usually develop a tolerance to LSD or have withdrawal symptoms when they stop taking it, they pose dangers for both one-time and long-time users. It is so powerful that any dose, no matter how small, which I'm guessing like in micrograms, if that makes sense, it's likely to produce enormous perceptual, emotional, and behavioral reactions. Um, so it definitely does make a huge change, regardless of um, how small of a dosage a person does take for that. Let me double check something real quick, guys. Sorry about that. Oh no, now the bitway is actually going again like I thought it was. What's the stream health now? Good. Well, it's still good, at least. I don't know why these things happen. I mean, for some reason, yeah. I mean, everything is fine. It's just again now it's telling me about the bit rate, but I can't. I mean, at least not right now. I can't really change it. You know. But that's fine. As long as it's in good standing, I'll leave it like that. If there is lag, unfortunately, it's gonna be like that. But from what I see, it's not like that bad of a lag either way. So here's actually a scenario or another case study where a person was admitted to a hospital because of LSD. So a 21-year-old woman was admitted to a hospital along with her lover. He had a number of LSD experiences and had convinced her to take it to make her less constrained sexually. About half an hour after ingestion of approximately 200 microgram, she noticed that the breaks in the wall began to go in and out and that light affected her strangely. She became frightened when she realized that she was unable to distinguish her body from the chair she was sitting on or from her lover's body. Her fear became more marked after she thought that she would not go back into herself. At the same time of admission, she was hyperactive and laughed inappropriately. Her stream of talk was illogical and affectable label. 2 days later, this reaction had ceased. So, yeah, 200 microgram. That is a small dosage, and yet this person here, she really did, have some unfortunate experiences taken with that. So I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying. With even just a tiny amount, at least LSDs, they definitely do affect everyone. They do affect everyone in some way, no matter how small of a dose a person takes. So that's something to think about. Another danger is the long-term effect that LSD may have. Some users develop psychosis or anxiety disorder eventually. Yeah, so technically, they can have different disorders because of this LSD, and that's where they would need, medical attention to kind of fight back these types of disorders. But yeah. So that was about it for LSDs. Now this next one, and here's the thing about this one. This one is more, I guess you can say, controversial in today's standards because some states do use it already. It's been legalized. Unlike a lot of these other ones that we talked about, it's been either illegal or just like hard to even get a hold of. Some states already here have already been legalized this substance, and from what it seems is that it doesn't, there's so much controversy regarding it, and that is cannabis. So I'm not sure. I mean, I personally don't have an opinion on this either way personally because I don't. I don't have a side. I just let things be, honestly. But yeah, so I mean, none of this is all from like the book's perspective. It has nothing to do with my opinions regarding that. If it does help someone out there, props to you. But there's some controversy regarding that. Just depends on what it is about, if that makes sense. And again, I think this bitweight is still having some issues. Yeah, it's still having some issues, unfortunately. Thing is, I don't want to actually increase it because of that thing either. So I guess I'll leave it like that and see what happens. But yeah, I'm sorry for that, guys. Hopefully this does clear up in a bit. But either way, so cannabis. Cannabis sativa, the hemp plant, grows in warm climates throughout the world. The drugs produced from the varieties of hemp are a group called cannabis. So that's why cannabis is basically a group of plants and drugs that this is formed. So the most powerful of them is hashish, and the weaker ones, which is the one that's been kind of legalized in I think several states. It doesn't really tell me. I don't think on this book, but in my book it actually does over here. I think I think so far from what it tells me in the book, I think 5 states, if I'm mistaken. But yeah, so one of the most popular one is marijuana. A mixture derived from the buds, crushed leaves, and flowering tops of hemp plants. More than 19 million people over the age of 11% currently smoke marijuana at least monthly. More than 5 million smoke it daily. And that is a lot of people. It's definitely not a good thing. Just how common this thing is again still. I mean, even if it does, like I mentioned, with this type of stuff, it really does. Interesting how many people really do take this. It really is a lot. But anyway. So each of cannabis drugs is found in various strengths because of the potency of the climate, basically. So basically where the planet came from, that's how strong it will be. So I'm going to skip about that. It was several. That's a little bit too specific that I want to go in. It's just talking about like the chemical that actually is in the main form of cannabis. Okay, but anyway, here's the generic stuff. Okay, so when smoked, cannabis produces a mixture of hallucinogenic, depressant, and stimulant effects. At low doses, the smoker typically has feelings of joy and relaxation, and may become quiet or talkative. Some smokers they may feel anxious, suspicious, irritated, so basically any type of emotion they may feel. Anyway, yeah. So many smokers report that time seems to slow down as well when you take cannabis or marijuana, and distances and sizes seem greater than they usually are. This high is what it's called. It's typically called cannabis intoxication. Physical changes include reddening of the eyes, fast heartbeat, increases in blood pressure and appetite, dryness in the mouth, and dizziness. Some people become drowsy and may fall asleep too regarding that. So again, it's interesting we got with all that. Anyway, sorry about that, guys. So some people may feel drowsy and may sleep. So in high doses, cannabis produces odd visual experiences, changes in body image, and hallucinations. Smokers may become confused or impulsive. Some worry that others are trying to hurt them. And of course, they last 2 to 6 hours in terms of that, and then changes in mood, however, may sometimes last longer. Because of what happens, it changes the way how a brain senses our emotions, so that does take effect. Let's see. So here's kind of where cannabis use disorder. So the weak form of cannabis, which is marijuana, will lead to a pattern of cannabis use disorder. Today, however, many people, which is a lot of high school students as well, are developing the disorder, getting high on marijuana regularly, and finding the social and occupational lives very much affected. Now, before we continue on that, this book doesn't really talk about this, but what about like the jewel pods? I don't even know what it actually is. I know it's a form of smoking or some type of marijuana use as well. But what about like those jewels things? That's also dangerous. Hey, a lot of high school students, I think even middle school students even sometimes do that, and that's dangerous. Surprisingly, this book probably won't cover it because it's not that new, but even this book, right, the one that has is the most recent edition, doesn't really go about that as well. But still, what about the jewel? It's kind of weird that it doesn't do that. It doesn't talk about it, at least briefly either. But anyway, how long have I been live anyway? Just 2 hours and 29 minutes. Okay, yeah, I need to get moving on this one. I didn't want to stay too long either regarding like this discussion. It is a bit of lengthy because of like the top of the different like substances we cover about. But yeah. So luckily, when we talk about like the causes, it really does not go into detail. It goes into detail, but the way I want to explain it to you all, it's it'll probably be a little bit more generic. So I should be done like within the next 30 minutes, hopefully. Going back to affects a lot of people's lives, especially with high school students and college students. They develop a tolerance for it, and then they may feel restless and irritable to have flu-like symptoms when they stop smoking the drug. Around 4.3 million people, 1.7% of all teenagers and adults, have displayed cannabis use disorder within the past month. And again, surprisingly, right there, that's a bit interesting. Um, so yeah, so marijuana. Okay, so this is here's I just want to point this out again. This is more like a chart, but I'm gonna I guess say it real quick. How easy is it for teenagers in general to acquire substances? Guess what the main one is? I mean, just out of curiosity, the main one is obviously alcohol. And why? Because it's legal, anyone can get it for them. It's not really that hard. They can even, I mean, I guess they can, fake IDs too. I'm not too sure what other way you can get it. But yes, that is the most number one common drug that teens get. The second one is cigarettes, which again, that makes sense because it's also legal. There's no way to kind of hide it. Yeah, anyone can buy cigarettes. Whether it's an adult or anything like that, and they could just steal it or buy them from adults. Now the next one is marijuana, which that is a surprising amount because despite that it is illegal. Well, hold on, let me actually double check on my book over my book over here. Because despite it's mainly still illegal within the U.S., it's still surprising how many of them actually get marijuana. And actually, oh wait, actually, hold on over here. Oh, okay, you know what? Yeah, and again, I knew this was kind of where I was right. The statistics are a little bit off. Um, this is from 2014 on my ebook over here. But yeah, the one I have over here, this one is from 2017. So yeah, 3 years of a difference. That does make there is a lot of new data for that, but actually, at least okay. So in recent times, the most frequent way teens get it is marijuana. Then the third, so yeah, the first one is alcohol. Then the second one is marijuana. Then third is cigarettes. Which again, it's really surprising, despite that it is mostly illegal within the U.S. So I don't know how they get it, but it really does make it doesn't is kind of interesting to think about. But yeah, that's how it is. So anyway, so okay, I'm not gonna do that. It's a bit too specific. Okay? So here is what the question does lie: is marijuana dangerous? So researchers have said that smoking it may have certain dangers. It can create panic reactions similar to ones caused by hallucinogens, and some smokers may feel that they are losing their minds when they do it. They end in 2 to 6 hours, although with marijuana's other effects, it does also pose like an impending risk regarding that. Because marijuana it sometimes may cause automobile accidents as well, which it's a bit interesting. I mean, yeah, well, I mean, I guess it makes sense because from the symptoms that they have, it can lead to automobile accidents as well. And then, so let me see. I don't want to go in again more too specific on that. Okay. So, I mean, they talk about like some health like risks, like the lungs, like how tobacco smoke does, and then how they talk about, ovulation in women who are chronic smokers. But it's interesting regarding like the safety of it all. And yeah, so it's interesting. Let me see. Okay, so yeah, cannabis and society, a rocky relationship, and that's where it comes into play. Where okay, is it really safe for society, or is it really not that good? So, technically, let me see. So they kind of use marijuana to treat glaucoma, which is well. Okay, look. Here's a personal thing. I have glaucoma. I personally have glaucoma. This isn't from the book. This isn't anything. But for me personally, I would rather take my eye drops than actually use something that uh what is it that does show some potential to unhealthy effects. Um, I mean, again, for some, I mean, yeah, well, I mean, even smoking in general, I don't, yeah, I personally don't even favor that for myself. But I mean, yeah, if I had an option between either eye drops or using marijuana, I'd rather go to eye drops because at least I know there's no side effects to it. And with marijuana, there is some other side effects that I may or may not be able to react correctly. But yeah, for me, glaucoma, I don't use this type of stuff, so I don't. So I mean, yeah, it's weird how they use this for glaucoma. Um, I mean, I don't know how it helps glaucoma in a way. It doesn't really say here, but that is something interesting to talk about. Um, but anyway, so it's even been used apparently for people with chronic pain and asthma even, and reduce the nausea and vomiting of cancer patients in chemotherapy, and improve the appetites of people with appetites of AIDS so they can combat weight loss. So it's weird how marijuana does like help these medical effects, but again, um, it's strange. Yeah, it really is a bit strange for to hear like it really does help like these medical stuff without any some sort of I guess look into it. Um, but I mean, hey, I mean if it does help some people, I'm all for it. I just personally don't think I would take it myself. I'd rather just either do my usual eye drops or if I need to have a procedure done. Um, to lower my eye pressure because that's what glaucoma is. Which if you haven't checked out my first stream, you should definitely do. I do explain a little bit more there, but glaucoma is like a fluctuation of eye pressures. Regarding that. Anyway, so yeah. So again, is it really? I mean, I guess I'll kind of skip on this. It's such poll. Yeah. So I'll skip like the whole. I guess like history and what's been going through. So yeah, is it safe for society? I personally don't know. I mean, I can't. Even the book doesn't really say either. It really is like a controversial topic. But again, for those who do, if you do watch this, I mean, hey, that's good that it does help you in some way. Um, yeah, it's just that I would feel more research would probably be needed to to at least fully make sure that it is safe. As a medical professional, I would imagine I would think that way. I wouldn't prescribe it if we were allowed to over here. Um, honestly, but anyway, so I'm gonna skip this combination of substances. It's kind of like a self-explanatory type of thing as well. Um, Basically, if you combine one drug over another, you can tell that it really would have some serious negative effects regarding that. Um, if you combine a stimulant with a depressant, yeah, that does produce even fatal instances, unfortunately, where it does not help out at all. So yeah. So with that being said, so that is all in terms of at least the what it is about, what each substance is about. There's still two more that I'll briefly mention at the end of this, but for now we're gonna do the causes and the treatments. And I'm gonna go in general with this, because my main thing was kind of describe what each substance is and how it affects our bodies. Um, so like the causes and treatments, I do kind of generalize this, just because I know not everyone really is interested in this. They just want more of the information itself. But yeah, so we'll go through this like pretty quickly. So what causes substance use disorders? It could one reason is because of how the economy is within the society where a person lives at. For example, if there is a low poverty city, yet there's like a lot of where there's a lot of high unemployment, a lot of people will more than likely have substance use disorders because they need that to kind of uh, cope with that illegal, by using illegal drugs or substances. And then, okay, I'm gonna skip that. And then other ones, it could be from family or social environments such as friends, family members. For example, drinking alcohol, they can develop it from friends who are alcoholics, from family members who are alcoholics, and I'm saying alcohol as an example because that's kind of like the easiest one. But I mean, of course, it ones with any type of what is it? Uh, any type of substance use. But yeah, that's where it really does depend on society, where if more likely it will cause a substance use disorder. Now going into the way how people are back in children and when they grow older, the only way that they can be is by satisfy a well basically what parents fail to satisfy a young child's needs for nurturance. So the child is technically wants to grow up depending exclusively on us for other help and comfort, trying to find that nurturance that was lacked during the early years. So basically, they when they experiment with the drug, that will be the comfort, that will be the nurturance that they missed when they were children that the parents didn't give, and that is one way how people, develop these substance use disorders. And I kind of skip that. So I mean, that's kind of they call it's called psychodynamic. That's what a psychodynamic view is for that. And then so now next is how the way we think and how we behave. So the way how we use or how the way people use substance use disorders is they let's see. Well, no, it's kind of like okay. Now I'm gonna skip that. What's what I was thinking about? I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out. No, hold on. Okay, here it is. So one way is because when people feel like stressed out or anxiety, they need something to calm them down. So what do? They tend to medicate themselves. That's what it's called. So that way, and by doing that, that's why the higher rates of substance use disorders increases, because people use these to help themselves without any professional guidance or help, and they always end up having problems of their own because of that. Sure, it may help them short time for their stressors, but eventually the solution will become another problem itself. you know so yeah, that makes so I mean that's what that's why a lot of people do that, for that. And then the last one is like for genetics, I mean like biologically, which is of course like the body, or the way how body is and all that stuff. So for example, genetics, some people are genetic to have substance use disorders, which is kind of interesting. And then another one is like biochemical factors, which is like how drug tolerance or withdrawal, like the drug itself, like for example medicated drugs like pain medication, when it's ingested, sometimes the chemical factors combined with our body may just end up getting used to the drug immediately quicker than others. So they end up doing so that's why it's higher for substance use disorder, because that person is more susceptible when taking it for an actual reason. And yeah, that's kind of why they use it for. Well, that's one cause why it happens. And yeah, that's about it for the causes, like the actual causes for that. Again, I know I'm being kind of genetic about this, everyone, but I don't. It's because I don't like going into too details on this, like these causes and treatments, because I know doesn't really affect you all. But I do like to give a general overview for that. because again, my main point is to actually get like the main information out there. For example, this week was substances, so I want to let y'all know what each substance was and what it actually is treated for. Let me see. So of course, one common thing is therapy. Different kinds of therapies, like how to, group therapies. There's, aversion therapies where they basically try and help people get away from the drug or substance itself. Um, and then yeah, so in fact, no, I'll skip that. Sure, why not? Yeah, I'll skip that, no problem. So yeah, those therapies, try to, and of course, there's also another therapy where they try to help the person change the way how they feel stressed. If it is from a stress-based situation, the therapist helps people find alternative ways to cope with that stress instead of that. Um, and of course, there's also like relapse prevention training to prevent it from happening again in the future. And of course, there's also like detoxification medications where they obviously help detoxify all the people who have taken a substance, and they just try and take the medication out of the person's body as soon as possible. Even though it may sorry about that. Even though it may seem a little bit not that easy, but it does help them out. There's also antagonist drugs, which block or change the effects of the addictive drug. And that obviously helps out to prevent like the symptoms, the symptoms of what the person is experiencing during the time of the substance use of the period. So yeah, drug. Okay, now that's about that. Let's stop right there. Okay, and of course, more therapies. Yeah, there's like Alcoholics Anonymous that helps people with people who are alcoholics. It's a self-help organization basically that provides support and guidance for people with alcoholism. And that's again so many different types of therapies, and places that help people with these type of disorders. They are the ones that give advice and the treatment that people need to feel like they are okay. That's about it. So I think this will be okay. This is the last one, and this one's actually really short. It's the last category. Now this is other addictive disorders. This is not. I don't think this is actually in the book itself, which is the DSM-5. I don't think they are not. For a second, let me double check on that before I do begin. Okay, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think this is actually a different type of in the book. Anyway. So yeah, so these addictive behaviors, these have nothing to do with taking something in or drinking or eating or nothing like that. This is about actual behaviors itself. So yeah, so gambling disorder. Actually, okay, yeah, no, I think about it. DSM-5 does have gambling disorder as an official category. So yeah, so it is alongside the substance use disorders, and because it really does have addiction with it, and it suggests basically that people may become addicted to certain behaviors and activities beyond just substance use, which again, it's true. Again, if you count, gambling, that's one. There'll be another one that I guess is kind of like a highlight for this channel, maybe, because I am kind of both in the way, both gaming and nursing, but we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, first off, gambling disorder. So 4% of adults, when 3 to 10% of teenagers and college students suffer gambling disorder. And basically what gambling disorder is a persistent gambling behavior leading to a range of life problems. And gambling disorder is, so basically the amount of time or money spent gambling, then by addictive nature of the behavior. So yeah, they don't really care about the money, they just care about actually gambling. So yeah, money or time doesn't really matter for them. It's just more about the energy, the what is it, like the actual adrenaline of gambling, the chance of winning. That's how it happens. When less money, yeah, when they lose money repeatedly, they often gamble more in an effort to win it back, and they continue gambling, even though eventually they'll face financial, social, occupational, educational, and health problems in the near future. Um, and yeah, they often lie to cover up the extent of their gambling problem. Um, and yeah, I mean that's where it really does come into play for gambling. Disorder. Like for example, for me personally, I don't gamble. I did have the opportunity once, but I thought, no, I'll wait for another time. Because me personally, I don't really like gambling. Unless if you count bingo. But bingo is only like quarters, like dimes, nickels. It's not like actual like dollar bills or hundreds of dollars. But yeah, I personally do like bingo. Yeah, but again, it's mostly quarters, nickels, and dimes. But and then of course I do play like the occasional lottery tickets, if that makes sense. But oof, it's been maybe almost a year since I think I've even bought a lottery ticket. Which, by the way, I probably do want to get that holiday one at least once, because I do like to get those holiday theme tickets. Um, but anyway, I'm kind of going far off topic over here a little bit. But in my point of view, I can see why gambling would be addictive to some people. Even though I don't experience it myself and I don't plan to do that, um, yeah, it really does make sense why people would want are addicted to gambling in the first place, because of the behavior, not because of the money or time, but because of the adrenaline and the emotions that happen with it. Um, so yeah, so let me see for people. So yeah, so it's basically again with the dopamine activity and basically like the reward center of how they gamble, because of the chance or the probability that they might win, but in the end they don't win. And of course, it's like repeated and mistakes as inaccurate expectations and misinterpretations of the emotions. Um, so they have this mentality that okay, that they'll win. That's why they keep going. But in reality, they don't. Um, so yeah, so that is why gambling disorder is considered a substance use disorder, part of the substance use disorder, even though it really isn't taken into it. Now, let me see. People attend. So I mean, to kind of obviously work with that, they just have to get with Gamblers Anonymous, which is again, it's like a self-help type of thing where they help many people with gambling disorders, and of course, counseling. They help trying to get back to the normal lives with that. Um, and from that, they do help out in the end. Now the final topic for this discussion is internet gambling disorder. I mean, sorry, gambling. No, internet gaming disorder. So, and here's the thing. It's called. It's funny how they say internet gaming disorder, but this whole section right here, it doesn't talk about gaming itself. It just talks about the internet itself. So, I mean, what are they talking about? Like actual gaming, like what we do as gamers, obviously, for those who I mean, obviously, are subscribers to this channel, or just love games in general. Um, but no, internet gaming disorder. My guess, I guess, for that term itself. Now, I know this has been, I guess, another controversial topic regarding that as well. But let me double check. Okay, so yeah, so gaming disorders, I do get it. Now, for me personally, I only play several hours, maybe at most 3 to 4 hours at most, once a day or once every 2 days, depending on my time if I have school or anything like that. Um, which I mean, yeah, it's like for example what I do on stream, basically. But anyway, um, people who have internet, I guess, well, gaming disorder. I'll say that. I don't know why they say internet gaming. People who have gaming disorders. They tend to have play more excessive amounts of time for like more than maybe like what I'm guessing 6 hours a day, and they tend to like put gaming over the priorities first, and they have this addictive behavior where they just can't stop playing the game. Um, Again, it doesn't really talk about gaming here. It does briefly mention it, but it's kind of weird how they kind of identify this internet gaming disorder. But that's my view on what internet gaming disorder is. Um, I mean, yeah. Again, I'll just say too much. There's too much of a good thing. There isn't much I can say further than that. Of course, tolerance is key when it comes to these type of things. I mean, it's like watching movies. It's like watching YouTube. People can be addicted to YouTube. But then again, it kind of goes into like this whole internet thing itself right here. Which either way. So, for example, as people increasingly turn to internet for activities, communicating, networking, shopping, playing games, and participating in the community, a new psychological problem has emerged, an uncontrollable need to be online. The pattern has been called internet use disorder, internet addiction, and problematic internet use, among other names. Um, so for people who have this pattern, at least 1% of all people, the internet has become a black hole for them. They spend most of the time, waking hours, texting, tweeting, networking, gaming, internet browsing, emailing, blogging, visiting virtual worlds, shopping online, or viewing online. Okay, well, no, I will not. Um, okay, I won't say that word. I'm surprised it actually says that, but I'll say viewing online intimate material. I'll say that. But yes, yeah, basically that is what internet addiction or internet use disorder is in general. But again, I mean, I don't know why this whole thing it says internet gaming if they don't even really talk about gaming itself. But yeah, that is a so yeah, at least 1% of people have this type of issue, and it's kind of like again with substance use disorders and gambling disorders, where they extending the loss of outside interest to possible withdrawal reactions when internet use is not possible. So even though a lot of people, a lot of like media, doctors, and a lot of like I guess general people have showed this interest in internet internet problem, it is not included as an actual disorder. Um, but there is some there is one part of there is one thing that they're thinking about, which is internet gaming disorder, which I'm guessing that's why they call it like that. But to receive further study in case that they want to ever include this as an actual disorder, which will tell whether this pattern reaches the status of a formal mental disorder. But basically, what they think is internet gaming disorder is a disorder marked by persistent, recurrent, and excessive internet activity, particularly gaming. Recommended for further recommended for further study currently. But I mean, besides that, they don't really describe it that much. But yeah, so that is what I guess they think about internet gaming, internet use disorder. That is another type of issue that that they believe that might need to be a disorder someday. Even my current edition of the new edition of the book still does not have any updated information about it. So who knows? Maybe in the future it will happen. But as of right now, it's not considered a disorder. But again, too much of a good thing is bad for you guys. Is all I can say. But with that being said, that is actually about it for the chapter or for the discussion. Which oh my, we've actually been almost about 3 hours of streaming this. I was not expecting for it to be actually that long. But anyway, so yeah, so that is all I gotta say for substance use disorders and addictions. Again, for the good things like caffeine, I guess even internet use, if you want to consider that, I would imagine, gaming, alcohol, even. I mean, again, well, that's a little bit more on the bad side, but again, any good thing can be bad in a way. Um, yeah, just take all of that intolerance. I would imagine. I would say, um, don't don't take anything excessively. If you do, then I mean, yeah, I do recommend you might want to see some help. Um, but I mean, yeah, that's based on on you all's perception of it and you all's own intake of what is too much for you all. But anyway, but now as far as like bad substances like heroin, cocaine, even I guess marijuana in some instances. Um, yeah, just be careful with all that kind of stuff. If any of y'all partake in that, I don't have any, I don't have any like additional feedback for that. I mean, it is illegal in a way, so yeah, I really can't say too much on that. Just know that it is riskful behavior in general, and you're kind of posing a risk for your physical and mental health. Um, but with that being said, oh boy, that was a bit of a good discussion right there. um, yeah, that was kind of an interesting discussion, everyone. Yeah, it was good. Honestly, I think that is about it. Again, take things into moderation of the common stuff that we all do in general. Coffee, gaming, internet, everything comes into moderation. That's all I can say, at least to end off this stream. But anyway, if you like the stream, definitely do hit the like button down below. I would definitely appreciate it. Um, it definitely does help me out. I do see we did get, I believe, a like already, so I definitely do appreciate that. But again, my own purpose is to kind of bring awareness to these different topics in general, so I do love doing this. From here on out, it should be like just interesting topics. It's not going to deal a lot with physical. It's going to deal a lot back again with psychological, like anxiety, like how anxiety, stress disorders, and even depression did. Um, yeah, kind of like how I was doing it back then. We're gonna go back in that focus from now on until the end of the semester. But yeah, guys. So if you liked it, definitely do leave a like in the video. If you haven't yet, definitely do subscribe if you like. That way you can catch future live streams of these discussions. And actually, I will be doing a gaming stream hopefully later this night. It will be unexpected, so please don't look. I guess like look for a exact time, and it may be just a quick stream tonight. But so definitely do subscribe and click the bell if you want to catch more of those streams. And but yeah, thank you all so much for watching. And if you want to also follow social media, links are in the description as well. But with that being said, I think that's a bit about it for now, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll definitely see you all tonight if I am live. And I'll catch y'all in the next live stream. Bye, guys.